Very, very warm welcome to everyone for the second webinar of the series, a 6 webinar series. It's the first kind of knowledge series which Living Without Medicine has organized with the support of Amar Ujala. Amar Ujala incidentally has been taking out almost daily reports on our webinars to share the whole idea of health awareness among people. They are present in about 7 states of North India currently, so it's a very good coverage which they're doing. They're doing it in Hindi, and while this whole webinar series was organized in a very short span of time and almost over the weekend, therefore we were not able to perhaps get coverage across and an outreach across to North India as much as we wanted to. But I think we are a very nice, decent group of participants, very keen to learn. The inspiration of this really came from the whole fact that while we have been on the Without Medicine network for now over a year, we have been addressing issues which are fairly similar to the ones we are covering now. The fact is that the deeper conversations about ourselves, about our bodies, about why things go wrong, what is a physiological aspect and what is a non-physiological aspect. There's a lifestyle aspect and there is a physiological aspect. That what is it, and therefore once we get to know the 2 or 3 aspects to our bodies, how can we really look at preventing some of these so-called lifestyle disorders, as well as reversing them on our own. When I say on our own does not mean that we don't need to go to doctors. No, that's not entirely what I mean. What I definitely mean that there is a line where there is this very clear line where we know we can work with ourselves, with our own bodies, care for ourselves, prevent, and also capable of reversing when the initial symptoms appear. And then, yes, when it comes to a point where we see these illnesses moving to the chronic zone, we have to consult the right doctors. Consulting doctors at the right time is also a very, very important part. We equally feel in Living Without Medicine that doctors have a very big role to play in educating people. So doctors are not just about prescriptions, consultation, and giving you the quick fixes which we all seek in today's busy times. But doctors, especially those who practice ancient therapies, are there really to guide us, advise us at every stage, and so that most of what we think we can, most of what we know we can enter into what is called the danger zone can be prevented. And so, therefore, Living Without Medicine has tried to kind of pull in those kind of conscious doctors who do believe that they must play this educative role. The third aspect of this whole webinar series has been inspired also by a lot of women who are doing great work and bringing healthy food to us. So I genuinely believe that one part of it is of lifestyle disorders, a very crucial part of it is food. And increasingly with our kind of urban living, we have started disconnecting with what is good food, what is real food. I will not even call it good. What is real food? I like the word real, because a lot of what we are having is processed. Whatever we are having is really doing more harm than good to us. And there are many women and men, of course, but this being for the International Women's Week, we are bringing to you connection with those women who are actually going to farmers, helping them grow real food and giving you access to this real food. Most of it is, honestly, when I kind of got into this about 2.5 years ago, I had myself got so disconnected with what India's wealth and food was, and how it really can keep us going.
सुनेंगे आप भी?
Yeah, so again we have somebody doing this. So Saurabh, yeah. I'm the only one. Great. So we are going to get you doctors who are in the educative mode and women agripreneurs who believe in healthy living. Some of them who have actually faced difficult times in their families and have learned the hard way of what eating healthy and organic does to our bodies. So we're going to bring both these to you so we complete the cycle. There are other aspects to the cycle which are, for example, stress, our emotional well-being. And I believe that today there are many organizations in India, not just counselors, but many organizations who help us with stress, and of course our own heritage, which is yoga, pranayam, is the most powerful tools for that. But I know that our doctors, each of them who believe in holistic living, are going to touch on that as a very important aspect too. So I have the privilege of now introducing Dr. Swapna Vemula. She's currently, she lives in Hyderabad. She practices in Hyderabad, and though she has studied her main education in homeopathy, has been in Karnataka, in Gulbarga, Karnataka, which is one of the premier institutes of homeopathy. So we really have the privilege of having her and her 18 years of experience in homeopathy with us. She of course has a private clinic now, and but has worked in the corporate world in homeopathy too. From I really do want to understand what corporate homeopathy could be, corporate practice could be. She has also done, she's actually worked on many serious chronic disorders, and very successfully so. So not just hypothyroidism, which is going to be the topic for today. She's worked on a large range of disorders, lifestyle disorders. So we're going to have her today go deep dive into hypothyroidism, why so many women seem to have hypothyroidism. And uh, I think I liked her introduction, which she said that most women who do end up having hypothyroidism believe that they have to, take medicine for their entire lives. And I know so many of them who do. She's going to talk about how it's possible not to live with those medicines. I can also share my personal experience. I was at about 2 years ago found to be on a borderline with hypothyroidism, and I just followed 2 3 advice on natural remedies, and I was able to reverse it. Though the allopath actually did give me the medicine, and he said you must start with this medicine. I did not touch that medicine, and I said, no, I'm going to take this as a challenge and reverse it. And we did, and I did. So over to you, Dr. Swapna. My privilege and honor to have you with us today. And welcome all participants. I'm so happy to see that so many of you are so eager to learn about yourselves and how to keep your health in top order. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gauriji, for that wonderful introduction of mine. So, hi friends, I'm Dr. Swapna Vemula, and I'm a homeopath based in Hyderabad. I've been into homeopathic practice for about 18 years now, and I worked for a corporate homeopathic clinic for about 3 years, and then came out of it. And now I have I run my own clinic in Hyderabad in Kondapur. And I'm a strong believer in holistic healing practices, and it's wonderful to be a part of Living Without Medicine group. One of my neighbors, who is an organic farmer, introduced me to this group, and I'm really grateful to her for this. So today we are going to, the topic I have chosen is basically hypothyroidism. The reason for this being, day in and day out these days we see more and more, particularly women, uh, taking a thyroid pill of every morning. So be it our cousins, our relatives, our friends around, we always hear that, I have this thyroid issue, I take this pill every morning and all. So the basic reason for me to choose this particular topic of hypothyroidism is uh, the increasing number of cases of hypothyroidism, more particularly in women. And see, once a person goes to a doctor to treat his or her hypothyroidism, they are told, they are just prescribed a pill, and then they are told that you'll have to be on this pill for the rest of your life because your thyroid gland isn't functioning well. So the very purpose of choosing the topic of hypothyroidism for today is I want to break the myth that once a woman starts taking a medicine or a pill to treat her underactive thyroid, she has to be on this medicine for the rest of her life. Over the years in my practice, I have focused on hypothyroidism uh, recently, and I have seen excellent results when homeopathic treatment is combined with lifestyle changes, like changes in diet and changes in physical activity and our daily routine. So coming to the topic itself, hypothyroidism. What is hypothyroidism basically? Hypothyroidism is a condition where the thyroid gland is underactive. So under an underactive thyroid gland leads to hypothyroidism basically. So this underactivity of thyroid gland is basically due to decrease in production of the hormone called thyroxine. So I mean, studies show 1 in every 8 women suffer from hypothyroidism in India. So let us see what are the first. Let's come to the causes. What are the causes for hypothyroidism, or what are the causes for deficiency of this thyroxine in our body? The first and foremost reason for hypothyroidism to appear is deficiency in dietary intake of iodine. Iodine is very much necessary for production of thyroxine in the body. So less dietary intake of iodine leads to hypothyroidism and an underactive thyroid. The next common reason that is most often ignored these days is Hashimoto's disease or autoimmune thyroiditis. So this Hashimoto's thyroiditis is an autoimmune condition wherein body's own cells fight against the thyroid gland and make it underactive. The next common reason for developing hypothyroidism is pregnancy. We on and off we keep hearing people कि मुझे pregnancy में hypothyroidism diagnosed हुआ, and since then I have been taking medicines. So due to the hormonal imbalance that happens in pregnancies, an inflammation develops in the thyroid gland, because of which the thyroid becomes underactive, and then you are put on medicines for hypothyroidism. The next common reason for hypothyroidism is any disorders in the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is an endocrine gland that produces thyroid stimulating hormone, which tells your thyroid gland how much and when to produce thyroxine hormone. So any disorder in pituitary gland also results in hypothyroidism. One more important cause of hypothyroidism that we encounter commonly these days is poor lifestyle choices. Most importantly, the food that we are taking. So junk food or processed food or canned food is inflammatory to the gut lining. Any inflammation in the gut lining leads to loss of proteins into the blood, because of which autoimmune thyroiditis develops. So as we discussed earlier, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is the most common type of thyroiditis that we are encountering these days, rather than only hypothyroidism. Then another cause is improper and inadequate sleep. Sleep is as much as important as diet. So these are the common causes of hypothyroidism, and that we generally find. Now coming up to the symptoms of hypothyroidism. Basically, a thyroid hormone influences the entire metabolism of the body, and an underactive thyroid decreases the basic metabolism of the body, or slows down the metabolism of the body. So this reflects in all the symptoms that come up because of hypothyroidism. Some of the common symptoms of thyroidism are putting on a lot of weight and inability to lose weight, dry hair, loss of hair, fatigue, which is both mental fatigue and physical fatigue, constipation because the intestinal motility is reduced, then sensitivity to cold, irregularities in menstrual cycles, be it delayed periods, or be it heavy bleeding, or be it scanty bleeding, brittle nails, and dry skin and dry hair. These are the most common symptoms of hypothyroidism that we come across in patients. And now let's come into the treatment part of hypothyroidism.
Dr. Swapna, sorry to interrupt. I think there is a noise coming from your end. So I think it is from your headphones or something. This is constantly ticking somewhere on hard.
Shall I speak without my earphones?
No, your voice is clear, but some noise is also coming along with your voice.
Noise.
Participants also
That is
reported
because
this.
your hand is touching the wire constantly. I just put that on the chat. Her hand is touching the wire. That is why there is a disturbance.
Oh, I see.
No, don't touch the wires, Dr. Sapna. I just wrote on the chat. You just keep your hands away from the wire. Happen.
Okay, done. I'll take care.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. So after the causes and symptoms of hypothyroidism, let's come to the treatment aspect of hypothyroidism. So conventional treatment of hypothyroidism usually when you go to a doctor with these complaints and they do the test to diagnose your hypothyroidism, they prescribe you medicine which is synthetic thyroxine, and it comes with different brand names like levothyroxine, or Thyrox, or L-troxine, or Thyronorm. And it comes, I mean, depending on the levels of TSH, they generally suggest you a particular dosage and tell you you have to take this much mcg of thyroxine every day to maintain your thyroid hormone levels. So over a period of time, what happens when we go for this conventional treatment is, because we are supplementing thyroxine hormone from outside, over a period of time, the gland doesn't feel the need to produce thyroid hormone and then gradually stops functioning. So, and that's the reason they tell you to be on this thyroid medicine for the rest of your life. What we generally do in homeopathy with homeopathic medicines is, we try to revive this thyroid gland so that it produces enough thyroxine. But when a patient comes to us for the first time with hypothyroidism and tells us, I've been taking this medicine for a long time now, I want to get rid of it. We try to convince them it's not advisable or it's not good for you, because to stop the medicine at once. And then what we generally, after a careful case taking and all, we just start them with the homeopathic medicine, and we tell them to take the homeopathic medicine along with the allopathic medicine that they are taking already. For some days we do both simultaneously, and monitoring the progress of the patient and closely monitoring the TSH levels and the changes that are happening in the patient. We gradually try to taper the dose of Thyronorm or thyroxine that the patient is taking, and gradually over a period of a few months we try to stop the medicines. But now the most important aspect of healing an underactive thyroid comes in the lifestyle changes that need to be adapted to maintain basic thyroid health, so that you don't have to take the medicine. Basically, to live without medicine. What happens? See, everybody of us know it is stress, it is lack of sleep, it is diet that is leading to all the troubles, and more particularly, the lifestyle disorders like hypothyroidism, PCODs, hormonal imbalances, diabetes, hypertension, and all. So today I would like to focus on what are the physiological changes that are happening when somebody is stressed out, or when somebody is eating the wrong food, or when somebody is not sleeping properly. What happens because of which your thyroid gland becomes underactive? So let's come to it one by one. So the changes that we recommend, the lifestyle or dietary changes that we recommend in people with hypothyroidism is, the first and foremost one is to increase intake of iodine in their diet. more recently, more and more people are switching to pink salt, which is good. But patients with hypothyroidism need to have iodized salt, because dietary intake of iodine is directly related to production of thyroxine, which is iodine is very much essential for production of thyroxine. So people with hypothyroidism need to have iodized salt. And then people have to avoid polyunsaturated fats, as in refined oils. What happens when people have refined oils is refined oils are inflammatory. They inflame your gut lining, and because of which the gut lining underperforms, and you start to lose proteins into the bloodstream, to which the body develops antibodies, and they start hampering your thyroid functioning. So yeah, somebody has asked me what are the other foods which are rich in iodine. Some of the foods that are rich in iodine are bananas, strawberries, whole milk, carrots, beetroots. These are some local foods that are rich in iodine. And so somebody is asking me about oils. So oils, basically, all of us have been hearing a lot these days about cold pressed oils and non-refined oils and all. So yes, it is very important to switch over to cold pressed oils, because the non-refined oils have a lot of polyunsaturated fats which inflame your gut lining, and they hamper your gut health, which indirectly leads to underperforming thyroid gland. Other foods that needs to be supplemented when you're hypothyroid are micronutrients like zinc and selenium. So these are very much essential again in the synthesis of thyroxine. So zinc, I mean, foods that have zinc and selenium are basically pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, nuts, almonds. All this stuff is rich in zinc and selenium. So it's very important to add all these in your daily diet. So generally what I suggest my patients is, see, basically our traditional Indian diet, like dal sabzi, dal chawal, roti and sabzi with a spoonful of ghee, has all the adequate nutrients in optimum amounts. So the traditional Indian thali that we eat is enough to supplement us with all the necessary micronutrients and macronutrients that we need. Somebody now, when we come to oils, somebody was asking me, is mustard oil okay? So what I suggest my patients is, generally the oils that you take will depend on which area you are living in or which area you are native to, because it all depends on the climatic conditions that you are living in, basically. So I tell my patients ki whatever oil you have eaten as a child is what you have to take. That's the basic recommendation I make for everybody. So for people who are living in the north, I think they are used to eating mustard oil. So I have seen my North Indian friends using mustard oil in cooking, for cooking. So I think mustard oil suits people living in North India. We South Indians always cook in groundnut oil and coconut oil. So I would not recommend one particular oil to everybody, but I always I'll always recommend oils that are native to the place, that local people eat, because that's what suits your body in that particular given climatic conditions. Along with these dietary changes, and the next more important factor that heals the thyroid gland is sleep. So adequate sleep, as in both quantity and quality, is very much necessary to heal a thyroid gland. You must have seen in most people talking about this thyroid pill, that doctors advise them to take this thyroid pill early in the morning on an empty stomach or as soon as you get up. The reason behind this is the thyroid gland is more active early in the morning. So that's the reason the body craves for thyroxine, and hence they tell you to take the thyroid tablet in the morning as soon as you get up. So I generally when I generally stress on having a very good and perfect morning ritual for people who want to heal their thyroid hypothyroidism. So more particularly in women, what happens is, see, right from more in women with children or married women or women who are working, what happens is morning is the most stressful time for them. राइट फ्रॉम कि दूध वाला नहीं आया अभी टू बच्चों का स्कूल बस मिस हो जाएगा. मॉर्निंग टाइम इज अ मोर स्ट्रेसफुल टाइम, but that's the time when your thyroid gland is more active. So what happens when you're in a constant stress, when the gland is more active? See, basically what happens physiologically when you're stressed out is, there's a gland called adrenal gland in our body which produces a hormone called cortisol when the body is in stress. Actually, cortisol is a very protective and good hormone for us, because it immediately generates reflexes in our body. Like if we face a danger, cortisol tells us you are in danger, you should react. It helps in it shoots up the reflexes in the body. But because of this continuous stress, the cortisol levels are constantly high. And when the cortisol levels are constantly high in the body, thyroxine production comes down. So this again, this is a vicious cycle. Stress increases cortisol, cortisol decreases thyroxine, and then your gland becomes underactive. This is what happens when the body is stressed. So I mean, keeping stress out of your life, more particularly in the mornings, is very important if you want to heal your thyroid, because hypothyroidism is most common in women, and women are the one who are more stressed in the morning. So I strongly recommend having a good morning ritual, adapting techniques like deep breathing, pranayam, and yoga. And I also recommend this particular type of pranayam called Ujjayi pranayam, which is very good for the thyroid, which is very effective for the thyroid gland. I have seen excellent results when Ujjayi pranayam is combined with homeopathic medicines and the dietary changes that I suggest. I have been successful in treating many hypothyroid patients. But what happens over a period of time? But the only focus should not be just getting off the thyroid pill and living without medicine. Generally, people are very focused until they have this only one thing in their mind कि मुझे ये thyroid pill every day नहीं लेना है, इसलिए I'll take this homeopathic treatment. But see, be it allopathic medicine or homeopathic medicine, I don't consider it treatment if you have to be on a pill for whole of your lifetime. So I recommend. So what happens when after they stop the allopathic medicines as well as homeopathic medicine, then they just ignore the lifestyle changes that they have been doing, and then go back to their regular diet and regular sleeping habits and all, and then it comes back again. So lifestyle changes combined with alternative medicine can get you off your thyroid medicine. Yes, it is very much possible, and I think everybody should think about it. And and so through this webinar, basically I want to break the myth that once you start taking medicine for thyroid, it has to be taken for the rest of your life.
Okay, so this is fantastic. A wonderful, purview of thyroid. Why it happens. What are the symptoms? What are the physiological aspects? So how can we get off the pill, and how can we ensure that even we off homeopathy after a point? So with consistent practice. I love some of the key takeaways you've given to us. And I think the most important takeaway, which you said in so many words, is that even whether it's homeo or allopathy, it's important to be stay off the pills, and it should not be a temporary practice to make a shift, but a permanent lifestyle change. Um, a lot of good points for discussion, and few questions kept coming up, popping up on our chat box. But now we're going to open it for question answer. Anybody wants to ask a question, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask the question.
Hi, this is Stuti here.
Yes,
Thank you,
Stuti, please go
doctor,
ahead.
for such a wonderful, explanation. I have one question. Statistically, is there any particular age group in women when you see an upswing in thyroid cases? As in, like, I am 43 now and I've never had a problem. But is there a reason for me to be, as we grow older, to be more cautious that we might, get thyroid problem?
Hi. So yeah, the most commonly observed, this hypothyroidism is most commonly observed in age groups of women in the age group of 25 to 45. So yes, I mean, if you ask me if you need to be cautious about it, I would say yes, certainly you have to be cautious about it, because given the lifestyle that poor lifestyle that we have these days, and given the stress levels that we experience in different times of the day, we have to be cautious. But I would not say you'll have to be extra careful, or taking extra care of your body. Basically, your body will tell you when something is going wrong, right? So as I told you, metabolism is affected when we have an underactive thyroid. So the basic if you observe any basic symptoms in your body, like lot of fatigue, I mean, jaldi thak jana, or for that matter, or thakan. So fatigue, which is both physical or mental fatigue, or if you feel, if there is any unexplained weight gain that you have experienced of late, or a lot of sudden hair fall if you experience, or if you feel your skin is getting too dry, or you are not having proper, basically if you feel you are constipated. So if you observe any of these symptoms in your body, yes, I would recommend to get your thyroid levels tested. But otherwise, if everything looks fine, and I don't think you need to check on your thyroid levels on a regular basis.
Hello, Dr.
Yeah, please introduce yourself when you ask a question.
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Swapna. This is Shailaja from Bangalore. So my question is, they say that millets suppress thyroid even with in people with adequate iodine intake. So what's your take on this?
No, I wouldn't agree to that. Because see, millets basically, I haven't come across anything like that as of now. But what we generally suggest for patients with hypothyroidism is avoid raw food. Cooked food is what we suggest. So what I have seen in case of millets is the way how you cook millets is as important as eating millets. Okay. So no, the millets do not interfere in your iodine absorption or iodine intake in any way.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
There is a debate on this, and I've seen this in many groups.
Yeah, true. Thank you.
So I think, yeah.
Hi, this is Namrata here from Mumbai. I just wanted to check, how often should one get your thyroid, tested? If you're 40 plus, is there a need to keep checking it, or only when there is some symptom is when you need to check?
No, only when you see. I would recommend you to get it tested only if you observe any symptoms, or any symptoms related to underactive thyroid. And if you are already a hypothyroid patient, I recommend getting a test done every 6 months. Otherwise, I don't recommend.
I don't have thyroid, but I just wanted to check, since the question raised earlier on was with regard to if you're 40 plus, are you should you be cautious, or could you get thyroid issues in future?
As a matter of fact, Dr. Swapna, one of the symptoms which I found for myself when I was on the borderline was irritability. I realized that my irritation levels would go up a lot during this phase, and that was my biggest symptom. And weight gain and irritability, the combination, kind of gave me the biggest indication.
Correct. So yeah, I mean that's a problem we encounter, that we see in patients, in hypothyroidism patients. See, basically irritability or mood swings, or it's a significant symptom. It's a significant symptom in patients with hypothyroidism. So it has to do with your metabolism, and also with your gut health basically. So what I say when I mean gut health is, see, there is always this gut and mind connection. See, I believe in this gut and mind connection. So when you have a bad stomach, or when your bowel movements are not proper because of developing slowed bowel movements, it reflects in your mind too. Yeah. Your overall metabolism in the body comes down, your circulation comes down, your metabolism, your bowel movements slow down, and there's a lot of mental fatigue that you will experience, because of which your productivity will come down, and your concentration levels and focusing levels will come down, because of which you will experience irritability and mood swings.
I was just also wondering, since you talked a lot about gut health, and that's such a fantastic, both I think sleep was emphasized a lot yesterday for PCOS, and I see this being a fairly same category of problem. It's very interesting, this thing about gut health, and it's suddenly becoming a very popular thing to, one is immunity and the other is gut health. One of the things which we have to probably go back to is eating the fermented foods which used to be available earlier on, and which we have forgotten to eat to keep ourselves. And the second is detoxification. I think we're not detoxifying ourselves as regularly as we used to in older days.
Can I have my inputs on fermented foods?
Sorry, are you asked? Sorry.
Yeah. Can I give you my take on fermented foods?
Please.
Yeah,
that was
so
ideal.
yes. See, when I say gut health is basically, I would like to elaborate a bit on gut health. So see, our gut has both good bacteria and bad bacteria. So when the amount of bad bacteria exceeds the amount of good bacteria, your gut lining starts getting inflamed, and then you develop symptoms of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome and all. So what fermented foods do is, fermented foods increase the bioavailability of nutrients that we are taking. Because of many reasons, though we are taking food, or nutritious food for that matter, the bioavailability of the nutrients is not as good as it used to be, or our gut health has deteriorated, because of which the nutrients are not absorbed and not assimilated as much as they should. So fermented foods increase this bioavailability of nutrients, so that the absorption of nutrients happens in a proper way and in adequate amounts, so that you don't suffer deficiencies of nutrients basically.
I see. Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah, and things like Ganji and Kanji and all of that, which we have forgotten, she needs to come back into our foods now. Yeah. Shweta, she was just explaining what are fermented foods. So the most popular fermented foods, for example, are dosa and idli, which you have, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but they are the traditional fermented foods, for example, are having your rice water, which is kept overnight, and it develops certain good bacteria, which is very useful for our gut. In North India, very popular fermented drink during winters, for example, is kanji, which is made of black carrots and beets. Right. So there are a large range of fermented food. Dr. Khadar talks about, somebody who's asking about millets. He talks about ganji as a very popular fermented food. Right. So we can have a separate session on ganji. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Please go ahead.
This is
Yeah, so
Seema.
when
You can
you say, you mean the organic rice, right? Otherwise, I don't think the other rice options here is going to give you a good gut health, is it?
I see organic has its own value and fermented has its own value. We shouldn't
No, I'm
confuse
saying
the
you're
two.
saying the rice water, which is
Yeah.
like overnight and had it in
Yes.
the morning. So when
Yeah.
I say rice comes in, not the purest form anymore.
Yeah. So try to have organic. Yes, absolutely. Our entire platform is built on organic, so we don't talk about non-organic at all. So,
No, I'm saying
yeah,
the availability and we are trying all forms of organic food, right? But we really don't know which one is the best.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I have a question. Hello.
Yes,
I'm
please go
Mubarak.
ahead.
Yeah. I'm Mubarak from Hyderabad. Thank you so much, Dr. Swapna, for all the inputs that you've given. I had two queries which I had put in the chat box. And one is with reference to gluten-free diet, which is usually prescribed for the hypothyroid patients. I'm not sure if you resonate with it. And about moringa, drumstick leaves, I would like your take on it.
Sure. So, Mubarak, what happens? See about gluten-free diet that doctors recommend for hypothyroidism. See, gluten. It is not necessary for everybody with hypothyroidism to avoid gluten diet. See, gluten basically irritates the gut lining. So, when I was discussing about gut health, there is a thin lining in the gut, which is this side of it is blood and this side of it is our intestines. Okay. So what happens? This gut lining has small, very small pores through which only the needed nutrients pass from our intestines. I'm sorry. Give me a second.
silent. You might want to silent your phone.
Right.
It's a very persistent person.
Yeah. Sorry for that. So what happens? So I was telling you about the gut lining. So what happens? There's very small pores in this gut lining through which only the essential nutrients are absorbed from the intestines into the bloodstream. So what happens when we eat inflammatory foods? Gluten is basically inflammatory. And it's inflammatory not for everybody, only for few people who have poor gut health. So what happens when the gut lining gets inflammatory is these pores get bigger, and the nutrients that are supposed to pass out to the colon or we are supposed to pass out in the fecus, they get absorbed into the blood, and because of it, inflammation increases in the body. Yes, I'm really sorry. Give me a second. So there is no hard and fast rule that everybody with hypothyroidism should avoid gluten-rich food. Should go on a gluten diet. But for if you feel that food with gluten is irritating your bowels or you are getting constipated because of it, only then you will have to avoid gluten. It's not a hard and fast rule for everybody. And about the moringa leaves. Moringa leaves are basically anti-inflammatory. So every aspect of eating, inflammation basically troubles your gut lining. So yes, moringa leaves are anti-inflammatory. So we recommend them for people with hypothyroidism.
So one
Thank
of
you so
the
much.
one of the very popular ones, since you mentioned moringa leaves, one of the very, very popular foods that we take, which is a home remedy, is dhania. So either kacha dhania or sabut dhania, we soak it overnight and we have it in the morning. So just wanted your thoughts on why do we have this dhania, and it actually helps. It's pretty magical in many cases.
You're asking me about how dhania helps?
Yes.
I'm not sure about it, Gauriji, because I'm not, I'm not too much into,
Okay.
I don't know. I'm really not sure about dhania.
Dhania, because yeah, for thyroid, the typical remedy which is proposed is dhania soaked overnight
Soaked
and then
overnight,
having
is
that
it?
water. Yeah, soaked overnight.
But we
So either
recommend,
you,
but we recommend soaked dhania for people with high creatinine levels. People who have high creatinine levels, or basically people who have low kidney functioning. We
okay,
recommend soaked dhania to improve the functioning of your kidneys, because basically it improves the filtration capacity of the kidneys, and
okay,
lowers your creatinine levels.
okay. But for some reason, even for thyroid, it's very popular. I have personally had it and I've found the use of it. So this combination of Ujjayi breathing and dhania and also
Yes, Ujjayi Pranayam,
Marma
even
technique.
I have observed in my practice the benefits of Ujjayi Pranayam for hyper. It really gives wonderful results.
Yeah, because it impacts the gland here,
The gland
directly.
functioning, exactly.
That's wonderful. Any other questions or?
Dr. Swapna, my question is, I'm Shailaja from Bangalore. Why shouldn't we consume raw food?
See, raw foods again. The food that most of the foods that we are getting these days are sprayed with chemical. It is very difficult to get raw. I mean, food or vegetables or fruits for that matter, which are not sprayed with chemicals and pesticides and all. So all these again hamper your gut health. If you are very sure that you are getting, there is no harm with eating raw foods at all, but it has to be genuinely organic and without any traces of pesticides or chemicals on them, which is very difficult to get these days. So we always suggest, to eat cooked food.
But cooked food loses all the nutrients, right?
Yeah, the process of cooking also is as important as it is equally important.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you are able to get very genuine organic food without any pesticides and chemicals and all, I mean, raw food is always good.
As a matter of fact, I have heard of cases where they have been able to reverse their thyroid through organic raw food, eating
Correct.
organic raw.
Correct.
So that's.
But
that's
I mean, a point from my side here. Generally, we hear doctors telling patients to avoid, goitrogenic vegetables like cabbage, cauliflower when you have thyroid issues. So yeah, these are called goitrogenic because they increase the level, they hamper your thyroid. So but cooked cabbage and cooked the cauliflower are always okay for hypothyroid patients. You're not supposed to eat them raw.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the same is probably about millets. They consider as goitrogenic, provided it is made, not made, it is made in the right way, which is somebody who's asking for millets.
It has to be cooked in the proper way.
Soaked for at least 5-6 hours and
Soaking of it.
Yeah, so hi, this is Shweta here. So Dr. Swapna and Gauriji, can you please just elaborate? I mean, when you say cooking millets in the right way, how should millets be cooked?
So, millets is today a very popular new age food, traditional new age food, which is coming back slowly. Its type of cooking has almost, its traditional form of cooking has almost disappeared, which is why it's being revived by many places. We continue to have, regular cooking classes teaching people how to do millets. There is a lot of it available on the net. Briefly, of course, Dr. Swapna can tell you, but very quick, the first tip I would share is that it needs to be soaked for 5 to 6 hours. We have many amongst us who are, I'm sure, millet eaters and experts in that. Very important to soak millets for minimum 5 to 6 hours before we actually cook them. Dr. Swapna, could you please add to that?
Exactly. Totally agree with you, Gauriji. So soaking millets is very important. And I recommend generally overnight soaking of it. So basically at least 5 to 6 hours of soaking. And I strongly I strongly recommend not to cook millets in pressure cookers. In fact, not only millets, for that matter, rice and all. Slow
Correct.
cooking always retains the nutrient value in the food. So slow cooking is what is recommended when you are cooking millets or when you are cooking rice for that matter. So avoid cooking millets in pressure cookers, and soaking millets is for at least 5 to 6 hours is very important for them to get digested easily. Otherwise, it will. Eating it will give you more trouble. It will do more harm than good.
Yeah, I think also millets are very popularly cooked in clay utensils, so you can
Clay
actually try
utensils.
switching
Exactly.
to clay utensils. Even your dals, you
That's
can
the
soak
idea.
them.
That's the basic idea behind slow cooking, right? So
Yes,
you can't. It has to be slow cooking if you are cooking in clay pots and.
correct.
But how
Absolutely.
can the millet flour be soaked like atta?
If it is atta, you need not soak it.
Yeah,
It's enough if you soak it for 1-2 hours.
yeah, and you can keep
The,
a little,
the dough.
warm water and put the flour in that, and then make the dough from the with the warm water.
Correct.
We can this millets can be a separate session altogether. We've done quite a few millet sessions, incidentally, with Ram Babu and with Meghna and quite a few with Shalini. At least 3 sessions we've done on millets. So if
Probably I've
there's
missed
popular
them.
demand, if there's popular demand on knowing more about millets, we're more than happy to do another session on it. Any other question?
Just
We are almost coming to an end with
can I say this is Seema
time.
here?
Yeah,
Hello.
please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, this is Seema here. And doctor, there is, I have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and about 2 months back, it was on the borderline. I have not yet started any allopathy medicine. So should I go with homeopathy? Because I'm a little confused what to do.
May I know how much was your TSH levels?
My TSH level was 3 months back. It was 3.20.
3.20 is no, I don't think it was 3.20, because 3.20 is falls within the normal limits.
And but now I've taken about 15 days back. It was 6.3.
6.3 is it? Yeah. See, if you haven't started any medication as of now, I would recommend not to start either allopathic medicine or homeopathic medicine. I would suggest you to do the lifestyle changes that we talked about, like increase iodine intake in your food, practice Ujjayi pranayama, and try having a good sleep. And there are few lifestyle changes that we talked about in this session. So
Okay.
I would if it is on around 6 or 6.3, I see, because if you don't start taking the pill right away tomorrow morning, there's nothing bad going to happen tomorrow morning, right? So I would say you give it a chance, and follow all the healthy lifestyle changes that you need to start up, and then wait for 2 months and then get it tested again. Uh, Most likely it is possible to reverse it, and the gland responds beautifully if you haven't started any medicine, be it homeopathy, be it allopathy, or whatever. So yeah, give it 2 months time and try to adopt healthy lifestyle, and the dietary changes or recommendations that we have talked about, and then after 2 months get it repeated. If it still continues to be high, better go for alternative treatment. I like homeopathy or Ayurveda. Yes, I can vouch for homeopathy in such cases, because if you haven't started allopathic medicine, it responds very beautifully.
Okay, so this
Fantastic.
Tata salt iodized is okay?
Sorry?
This Tata salt, you're saying no iodized salt. Tata
Yeah,
salt.
iodized, yeah, brand I would not comment, but iodized salt is always recommended for people with hypothyroidism.
Okay.
One last question, Dr. Sapna, and then
Hello.
we need to move to our last section now. What happens if somebody has persistent hypothyroid which has moved to fairly dangerous levels? What is the consequences on the body?
Yeah. So basically, what happens when you have a hypothyroidism, consistent or persistent hypothyroidism with very high TSH levels is, as I told you, it basically influences the entire metabolism of the body. Entire metabolism, in the sense, thyroid hormones basically has its influence on each and every organ of the body. So it slows down the metabolism of each and every organ. Suppose what will happen if the metabolism of the heart comes down, or functioning of the heart comes down? Basically, there will be circulation issues. There will be atherosclerotic changes in the arteries because of slow down circulation. This is regarding the heart. Suppose and basically hypothyroid. See, thyroid hormones also impact a lot of other hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and also you'll have people, women will face menstrual irregularities, either over bleeding or very scanty bleeding, or absent bleeding, I mean complete amenorrhea sometimes, or absence of periods. And you'll start putting on a lot of weight, because basically slow metabolism means fat gets deposited, more fat gets deposited in the cells, right? So your cholesterol levels will go up, your risk of heart diseases goes up, and there are many things that can happen, because thyroid hormone has its effect on each and every organ of the body. Your liver functioning comes down, and your liver parameters will shoot up. So you'll have to start taking statins, and
I'm glad you said this, because I just wanted to understand why people take thyroid so seriously, and though it's such a common disease, one used to really wonder why do people get so agitated when when thyroid is happening, and what could
Yeah.
possibly really be the
Yeah,
consequence.
I would also mention at this point कि we hear from many people कि मुझे pregnancy में thyroid का problem हो गया, and I have been put on medicines, and I've been taking it from then onwards. So it is very important for thyroid levels to be well below 3, especially during pregnancies, because it can cause a lot of abnormalities in the fetal abnormalities basically. So when so it is not at all advisory. If your gynecologist suggests thyroid pills for you during your pregnancy, I would say it is 100% necessary to maintain your thyroid levels below 3 if you are pregnant. So don't go into the mode of I don't want to start these medicines, especially when somebody is pregnant, because after a healthy pregnancy and delivery, there are always chances that you can stop your thyroid medicines, but it is very, very important to maintain optimal, your TSH levels around 3 or below 3, especially during pregnancies.
Hello.
Thank you so much. That's very, very useful. We are winding up Dr. Swapna's session now. Thank you very much, Dr. Swapna. We will have her on our group. So, for tomorrow. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask them on a group. We have our last section with Shailija Nakula, who is with us right now. Shailija is this wonderful, dynamic lady in Bangalore who has, she's really my favorite. And she has, we have not met, but we kind of connect so beautifully. And Shailija is doing some amazing work with farmers, small farmers, medium-sized farmers, to bring healthy organic food to your plates. We were talking about the importance of chemical-free food. Shailija does this in Bangalore. She actually buys from farmers. She brings the farmers together, trains them, and then buys this food and brings them to our plates. And she's created this beautiful organization called Indic Living. Shailija, over to you. Love to know more about your work in the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Thank you so much, Gauriji. First of all, a very happy Women's Week for everyone over here. And I just got few minutes of time, so I will convey the best possible information which will be fruitful for everyone. So my name is Shailija. I'm the founder of Indic Living from Bangalore. And Dr. Swapna, it was like amazing information we got about hypothyroidism from you. Thank you so much. So I started my journey much similar to living without medicine. I had a health issue, a gynec issue basically, because of which I had a pregnancy problem. So I quit my work. Then I wanted to cure it in a holistic way. That is when I did yoga, did changes in my diet. I reversed my PCOD and everything. And I wanted to know what is this organic food which reversed my condition completely. That was a trigger for my journey actually. Then I started reading lots of books about organic food, organic, how it is grown and everything. I came across Vandana Shiva's videos. I think most of you might be knowing Vandana Shiva, where one point of her struck to my mind. That was, so any farmer should measure not yield per acre, but nutrition per acre of land. So I think most of you should agree this. It is not how much quantity we produce per acre of land. It is how much health or how much nutrition is we are getting from that organic produce. And that is how my journey started. Then I started connecting with farmers everywhere, all over India. So it's not simply retailing. I can buy from a farmer and I can sell, but that is not my point. My point was how it is grown. What is the nutritional benefits? I've learned farming for 5 years in different parts of India, went and worked with farmers right from crop sowing to harvesting stage, then storage stage. Then that was the idea behind my venture, Indic Living. So my other point was somebody introduced me to a remote village in Maharashtra called as Beed. It's a very remote village, might be Gauriji might be knowing, and most of the North Indians. So a particular village had all the women who were, I grew up in Hyderabad and completely, away from village life. So I never knew what is haath ka kuta hua aata ya stone ground pulses and all. So I never knew that was nutritious as well. So I seen Pooja Didi doing all these things. Then I asked Pooja Didi, what are you doing? आज के ज़माने में आप क्या कर रहे हो? Then she told, दीदी ये सबसे आपको जो सेहत के लिए अच्छा रहता है यही है. हम लोग यही खा के हम लोग 24 घंटे, that is 24 hours, we are like working in the farm. I don't know what is this. Then I made a self-help group in Maharashtra, Beed, and these women does the hand pound dals, whatever it is, that 2 quintals, 3 quintals of hand pound dals for hours and hours together, days and days, and hand flowers and all. So I never put them down. So we try to market their stuff genuinely. So that is how we do it. So I also appreciate somebody asking about millets. That why should we soak millets or so? You soak millets for easy digestion. The phytic acid from it has to be removed. Phytic acid prevents digestion. So it has to be digested quickly. So all our things, all our products are from the farmers are unpolished and semi-polished. We do not encourage polished or eating white sugar especially. You should go with sweetness other than white sugars like jaggery, jaggery powder, palm jaggery, honey, anything apart from the white. Whether it is white rice, polished pulses, or polished millets. Sorry? Polished millets, etc. So we deal with, I also met farmers who are doing genetically modified seeds, which hamper your health a lot. So that is how I connected with a group of around 50 to 60 farmers who were using native grains for all our household needs. And I started connecting these farmers to the consumers by sourcing their produce. So right from cold pressed oils to your rice, flours, health mix or snacks, one of my farmers was producing, was growing millets, has jackfruit seeds. But even then his market was very down and he was incurring losses. Then I suggested, why can't you do a value added addition with your products? That is how we came up with jackfruit chips and millet savories, which they were doing with virgin coconut oil, which is very good for health. So as Dr. Swapna was telling, preservative food is very dangerous nowadays. So why can't we substitute with millets or any other stuff apart from buying the processed food from your stores? And that's all, Gauriji, that I can tell you. I'm very happy that I am a proud Bhumija and you can connect me for your shipments or whatever your needs are, and we deliver pan India. And my website is also being developed where I'm trying to connect a farmer to a consumer directly. It is called as www.indicliving.com. Thank you, Gauriji, for giving me this amazing opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you for getting us such good food. And that's my inspiration, right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh my God. That's interesting. So, Dr. Swapna, what a fantastic session. I know all of us are very grateful. You all want to share any feedback? Quick, thank you. Please unmute yourself. It's been wonderful having all of you, such attentive audience. I'm sorry there was less Q&A time. I know there were many more who wanted to ask questions, so my apologies. But we will have Dr. Swapna with us tomorrow. So feel free to please ask her what you'd like to. What a wonderful, well-summarized session on hypothyroidism. I don't think I ever understood hypothyroidism the way you have explained it. So I really, really appreciate. And the whole spirit behind the way you, what you say, advise your patients is really what is aligned so much to our vision, which is living without medicine. Thank you so much again. Thank you. Good night to everyone. God bless everyone.
Thank you, Gauriji, for this wonderful opportunity. I think more and more people will move towards living without medicine after this session. And yes, it is very much possible to live without medicine, more particularly in hypothyroidism.
Thank you. Thank you again,
so
Dr.
much.
Swapna.
Thank you so much.
I hope
We
some
really
of them can
appreciate
also consult with you if required.
I think I'm the first
course.
person. My parents' place is closer to Kondapur, so I'll be coming and consulting you first.
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
So much.
It's been wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Very enlightening.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Saurabh? Still, oh God. Saurabh, you're still there? There are quite a few people still there. So, yeah, we can all sign out now. Are you still there? I'm trying to close the meeting. How do we close the meeting? So.